FC. Movie Net, Saturday, 10:30 p.m., W5FC.
I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
morning. Does anyone need to use the repeater before we start Skynet? It is November Tango 5 Tango Mike. My name is Tony, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for the net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro words break, break, and their call sign. Is there anyone out there with emergency or priority traffic? From net control, tonight that's me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of their transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Checklinks, check-ins via Echolink, are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the node number 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video streams are available online. www.w5fc.org, that's whiskey5friedchicken.org. Right now, for the complete list, remember to tell others about this popular net, and don't forget to participate. All amateur operators are welcome, and you don't have to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in many parts. We won't get to them all, or we might, who knows, but we'll do our best. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, a discussion topic of the evening, what you can see in the sky tonight, a featured constellation or object, recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, visible satellite passes over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and the infamous or famous or fun 73 round. All amateurs who are licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. Let's start with round one, low power and short time check-ins. I'm particularly interested in short timers here. Anyone who has to go soon but who'd like to check in and be counted, please come now. Short time stations, please come to the net with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
This is November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Alan, low power and portable.
I heard November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William, low power portable in Allen. Thank you for checking in, sir. Do we have anyone else who'd like to join us now in the short time section of the net? Low power and short time stations, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location, please.
KC2RAQ, Kilo Delta 2, Romeo Alpha Quebec, in Dallas, new to the area, Romeo Oscar Delta, Rod.
Delta 2, Romeo, Alpha, Quebec. Rod, welcome to the area. We're glad you have found one of the most fun repeaters that there is. At least that's what we think. We try to keep it busy as much as we can. Thank you for checking in, and if you do have any comments or questions, please be sure to recheck. Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead with general check-ins. Anyone who'd like to join us by radio frequency, now is your time, and Echolink operators, don't worry, I will take Echolink check-ins in just a little bit. But general check-ins, anyone who'd like to join us now, please come to the net with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite. I hope I don't have an echo tonight.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill, serving.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville.
Oh, India 6, Sierra Juliet Golf, Mike in Grapevine.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Mike Richardson. Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Alan in Dallas.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell, mobile.
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richardson.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
Is
Kilo Echo 5, Romeo Foxtrot Zulu, Darwin in Garland.
Yes. Kilo Bravo 5, Uniform November Z, Fort Worth.
right, a great bunch here. That last station, Kilo Bravo 5, Uniform November Zulu. Could I get your name to put in the log, please?
Yes, sir. I'm Max.
Sorry, my bad ears got you. Did you say Max or Matt or something else?
Max. Max another X-ray.
Hey, Max, welcome to the net. Thank you for checking in. Earlier in that round, I also heard KF5JHA, N5BB, KC5OZT, KI5SJG, Mike, WB5OZL, Brenda, KG5P, another Mike, K5AMP, Allen, K5JDW, AA5AH, KE5ICX, KE5RFZ, and KB5UNZ Max, who was last in that list, but not least. Do we have any other RF check-ins at this time? Anyone else who'd like to join us, please come out with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
Golf 5, Juliet Papa, November, Mark and Oak Cliff.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
I heard Kilo Golf 5, Juliet Papa, November, Mark and Oak Cliff, and Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Bravo, Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill and Farmers Branch. I think I'm getting a little sleepy, but there's a lot of Skynet still to go, so I can't give in. Okay, let me ask if we have anyone who'd like to check in by Echolink. Anyone who'd like to join us by Echolink? I've got the chat window pulled up. Now's the time for Echolink stations. I'm going to leave huge pauses. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location by voice or chat. I'm looking for Echolink stations.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu, Whiskey, J, near Weatherford.
Kilo Golf 5, India Mike Zulu, Springer in Hamilton, Texas.
Kilo Echo 0 Mexico Foxtrot Delta, Matt in Davenport, Iowa.
Let's pause here for just a minute. Let me catch up here on my notes for 1 second. So let's see. I heard N5IMS-JJ, who's just listening. N5YEO, Stephen in San Antonio, KG5IMZ, Springer, KE0MFD, Mike Foxtrot Delta, Matt in Davenport, Iowa, welcome. And then JKG5BZW, Jay, if you checked in, you definitely did, so I'll just add you to the list, KG5BZW. And there was somebody else, it sounded like it might have been K5ANP, I'm not sure. If there was someone else trying to check in that round who didn't get called on, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. Anyone who'd like to check in by any means, anyone, Echolink, RF, Carrier Pigeon, Parrot, throwing a baseball with a note written on it over the fence, anyone who'd like to check in by any means, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. Sitting on their mic, but it's possible someone was trying. We will take lots more rounds of check-ins, so if you do need to check that the microphone is plugged in or things like that, get that taken care of and just give us a try on another round because we're going to be here till at least 10:30 and there'll be lots of chances to check in. This is NT5TM for the Saturday night Skynet, and we've completed our first rounds of check-ins. Let's go ahead with our first piece of business. General announcements. Do we have any general announcements for the net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or just something of general interest to licensed hams. Oh, so quiet. Well, I always have a few saved up. Please don't forget that this is not the last net of the evening. We do have an Afterglow movie discussion net coming up right here at 10:30 p.m. and or maybe about 10:35. It kind of depends. And fear not, you still have time to watch this fine production with its readily comprehensible and very engaging plot for free. For free. If you go to the Facebook group for the Afterglow movie, you can click on a link there, and I know Tom will have more information about that in just a couple of minutes. I got this wrong, but this is the first Saturday of the month. That's right, because I'm the first Saturday net control, but earlier today I got off of my rhythm and thought it was the second Saturday. But it's the first. That means tomorrow is the first Sunday. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club will have its meeting on the air right here tomorrow at 7 p.m. You don't have to be a club member. You just have to like sharing what's been going on in your ham world. And this Monday, we're going to have the MCOM 101 net. You don't have to be an Aries or Races member. We're just going to take a open to all, welcome to all approach to the basics of public service communications and talk about that for about an hour this Monday right here at 7. Are also a couple of AMSAT nets that are worth mentioning. This net is the only time we mention these. We don't usually cover them during our daily announcements. On Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Central Time, there is an Echolink net based out of Houston, Texas, Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. If you go to your Echolink software and look for groups in AMSAT, you will find the net. It originates from Houston, Texas. There is also a Dallas-Fort Worth AMSAT net based on the Arlington repeater every Wednesday at 9 p.m. That repeater is 147.140, PL tone 110.9. Well, Tom, I've covered at least our upcoming club nets. I think that's good enough for that. So why don't you tell us about tonight's Afterglow movie, KE5ICX from NT5TM. What do we have going on at 10:30?
Well, thank you, Tony. And this is KE5ICX. Here is the synopsis. Tom jumped out of his time machine and he realized he'd set the machine almost exactly 1 week too far into the future. I didn't send out the Afterglow movie information on Sunday, he thought. He wondered how he might handle this major injustice. Suddenly it came to him. Give them something short to watch, and they won't complain about not getting to see it before the 10:30 net. So he Googled something short and maybe not so sweet. Up on the Rotten Tomatoes website list came an episode of a delightfully forgotten TV series from Britain called The Champions. Soon he'd found an episode called The Ghost House on YouTube.com. Ooh, scary stuff. So for the next Afterglow movie, we'll be talking about the telepathic crime-fighting team, The Champions. It's like having cell phones in the 1960s. Tonight at 10:30 p.m. Beware or be Tom. Back to Net Control. This is KE5ICX.
Hi, Tom, thank you. And as I mentioned, you can watch this. There is time. Heck, you can even set YouTube to 1 1/4 or 1.5 speed and get through the net, get through that movie without taking up too much of Skynet. Does anyone have questions about any of our announcements? Anyone with a question about the announcements, please come now with your call sign phonetically. Do we have anyone out there who'd like to check in? Anyone who'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. Do we have anyone with news about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas? When and where you can look through a telescope, the latest meeting, current happenings, or other news? Anyone who'd like to talk about TAS, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
F5, JHA.
F5 JHA, please go ahead. And no, there is no echo.
It's not a play on Echolink either. It was something else last week. But Tony can explain that to you later since he's net control. All right. So the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas has meetings on the fourth Friday of each month, January through October. In November, it's actually the Friday before Thanksgiving because the fourth Friday would usually be after Thanksgiving, and that doesn't work out too well. And in December, there's usually a holiday event, and that happens, on some sort of date. So, at least for 10 months out of the year, on the fourth Friday of each month, at the University of Texas at Dallas, That's on Campbell Road in Richardson. You can go to the Texas Astronomical Society meetings. It starts at 7:30 in the Student Learning Center. It's the ground floor of the lecture hall. Also, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas has star parties that are hosted on Saturdays. On the first Saturday of each month, the Stargazer Star Party at Spring Park in Garland. The second Saturday of each month, it is the Frisco Starfest at the Frisco Commons Park in Frisco. Cedar Hill Star Bowl at J.W. Williams Park. And Stars on the Rock is on the fourth Saturday. It's the Shores Park in Rockwall. Okay, guess what? In all of 2019, we've had 0 of them because of clouds or because the ground was too wet to set up on. So we were hoping to break the streak, but tonight didn't happen either. So, does anybody in any fields or have any questions about the information for the Texas Astronomical Society? Not so. Back to net control. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Chaz. And yeah, I really hope that we start having some clear Saturdays with dry weather, at least now and then. I don't want a drought, but I'd like to go to a star party or two. This is NT5TM for the Saturday Night Skynet, and I'll now call for anyone with news about the National Space Society. Anyone who'd like to mention the National Space Society events and activities for the area, please come now with your call signed phonetically.
This is November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
BB, please go ahead.
This is N5BB. I am the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. Our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, it's going to be on Sunday, April the 14th. That is not tomorrow, it's a week from tomorrow. So Sunday, April the 14th, the meetings are always on the second Sunday of each month. We meet at the Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on the southwest corner of Beltline and Highway 183. This is directly across the highway from Irving Mall. I don't know the topic yet for our next meeting. I apologize. There's lots going on with manned spacecraft right now, but I believe I've already mentioned most of that on the previous nets. So I won't have really any new information until after the next chapter meeting on Sunday the 14th. If anybody has any questions about National Space Society locally, you can reach me, N5BB at ARRL.net. This is N5BB. Thank you, Tony.
Well, thank you, Bill, but you don't get off quite that easily. I understand the meeting is on the 14th, but it is a breakfast or maybe a lunch or a dinner? I don't know. What time is the meeting?
Oh. Well, the meetings normally start about 3:30. The speaker normally goes from around 4 to 5, although sometimes that varies. And the business meeting usually ends a little after 6 p.m. It usually goes from about 5 to 6. So arrive at 3:30. Grab some barbecue if you'd like. And you'll be out of there at 6 if you stay for the whole shenanigans, including the business meeting. 3:30 p.m., Sunday, April the 14th. This is N5BB.
you very much. This is NT5TM for the Saturday Night Skynet. And I'd like to ask if there was anyone out there who'd like to check in, anyone waiting to join us. Now's your time. Echolink or RF, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
Is Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, mobile, James. So Golf 5, Oscar Hotel Victor, Jason, mobile.
I, Ted, low power in Dallas, Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James, who's mobile, and Kilo Golf 5, Oscar Hotel Victor, Jason, who's also mobile. Okay, well, I'm going to start my discussion topic of the evening. As Net Control, I get to pick something to talk about, and I have been talking a lot about space disasters. But lately, we've had something in the news that's an intentional disaster, a test of an anti-satellite missile by two agencies of the government of India working together. So I'll talk a little bit about what's going on with this, why everyone is so annoyed at them, and why it's also kind of pointless. So first, anti-satellite weapons. An anti-satellite weapon, or ASAT, is any weapon, really. It could be a laser, a chip of paint, a big missile, a nuclear bomb, designed to incapacitate or destroy a satellite, usually for military purposes, although I guess you could do it as a very expensive practical joke. Several nations possess operational ASAT systems, and although none of them have ever been used in warfare, these four countries have all attacked their own satellites just to prove they could. Only the U.S., the USSR, now Russia, China, and India have successfully done this. Space is hard, but I'd like to stress that destroying a satellite is much easier than building one. Even a well-paced chip of paint, I'm going to mention that a lot, can knock a big gouge over the space shuttle window. They did an example of that during the space shuttle days. They showed this big crater the size of a dime that was chucked out of a space shuttle window by a chip of paint weighing only milligrams. What would a chip of paint do to a sensor on a spy satellite, or what would a small nut or bolt do instead of a tiny paint chip? All you really have to do is be in the right place at the right time. Once you're there, spacecraft are as fragile as they can get away with because they have to be light, and they travel at high velocities. Your target satellite will do all the work for you. There are two ways to destroy satellites: a CoOrbital system, where you place another satellite in orbit that gets up near the target satellite. It gets close, it offers the target a beer, and then violently explodes. The USA has used CoOrbital satellites to inspect or look at satellites from the USSR, but not to destroy them. A direct ascent system pops up a rocket just in front of the target satellite and rams it. The target is typically going about 5.5 miles a second, so really you don't have to do much work. Why are we worried about this? Apart from the fact that satellites are expensive, there's this thing called the Kessler Syndrome. The Kessler Syndrome is also known as the Kessler effect, and it's a cascade, sometimes called a collisional cascade or an ablation cascade. NASA scientist Donald Kessler proposed this in 1978, and Tom, if you're looking at Tom's video, he's got a map of low Earth orbit space debris up there. There's a lot of it, and here's the worry: you smash one satellite, it makes a lot of debris. that debris makes other satellites more likely to get smashed. If some of them do get smashed, you get even more debris, and the problem gets worse. This is what everyone worries about with anti-satellite weapons. It's a kind of domino effect. On Earth, we worry about nuclear winter. In space, we worry about paint chips and their ability to produce yet more paint chips. The satellite space probe and crewed mission has the potential to produce debris. Sometimes in the early Gemini programs, someone released a pennant that I think said, "Go Army, beat Navy." It was a very innocent time. They were tossing football pennants into space. Now we're all worried about satellites ramming each other. There are about 2,000 satellites from businesses and governments currently in orbit, and about 600,000 pieces of junk able to be tracked, which damage or destroy one satellite each year. Satellites are in low Earth orbits, which fortunately are subject to a little bit of drag from the very thin atmosphere that helps keep the zone clear by slowing things down eventually. But geosynchronous orbit and other high orbits are much more worrying. Drag can take thousands of years to bring them down because there's not much atmosphere, hundreds or thousands of miles above the Earth. We're talking about atoms per cubic meter. Good news about the Kessler Syndrome, something that movies like Gravity like to overlook, is that, yes, you can put a lot of debris in one particular orbit, but if you're going higher than that, if you're just passing through, the risk is fortunately rather small. If we were to junk up the 90-minute orbit where the ISS is, we could start using, higher up orbits, 100-minute or 120-minute orbits, and so forth and so on going up. It's dangerous and it's bad, but it's hard to cause a Kessler apocalypse. Start off here talking about the United States' anti-satellite weapons, especially those from the Cold War, because those are the ones about which the most has been publicly released. The U.S. had several different programs. They were all kind of on again, off again. None of them got a very high priority for very long. My favorite was probably the F-15 one because it sounded very impressive. A jet fighter shot down a satellite, but this was actually a really rudimentary system. It was prone to locking onto stars and other objects by accident. It was mostly based on just the pilot's skill at getting the missile to exactly the right place at the right time. And of course, we have skilled pilots. The first one was an ALBM, an air-launched ballistic missile known as Bold Orion. The Navy had its Polaris submarine missiles, and the Air Force wanted to show that they could have ballistic missiles launched from airplanes. Now, this is a little harder. Submarines are big and heavy, so they can carry big and heavy missiles. For an air-launched rocket, you have to be smaller. They did test a number of these, and they finally got one to pass within about 4 miles of the Explorer 6 satellite. The Explorer 6 satellite looked like a little pinwheel in space, and of course, they didn't actually destroy it. They got within 4 miles of it. Navigation technology at the time was a little primitive. But what that meant was if they had used a nuclear weapon, preferably a really big one, it would have destroyed the satellite. We'll come back to why that wasn't quite such a good idea in a minute. The Air Force next pursued Project Mudflap. This used a Nike Zeus anti-aircraft missile with a nuclear warhead. It was upgraded to Project 437, which used a solar IRBM, even bigger with a nuclear warhead on it. These were used from roughly 1962 to about 1975. They did 8 test launches. And it was pretty cool. The Thor missile was very big and powerful. It could put a really big nuclear weapon up into space, so you didn't have to be very accurate. But the results were actually more worrying than helpful. You put fallout in space, it doesn't fall out. If you put a lot of charged particles, better known as radiation in space, it doesn't really radiate. It tends to stay trapped by the Earth's magnetic field. You make an artificial radiation belt, kind of like the Van Allen belt. And this is bad because not only do you nuke your target, but you nuke anything of your own in a vaguely similar orbit. And you also can cause effects on the ground. One of the last tests using the Thor was the famous Starfish Prime nuclear missile test. It made a big cloud of glowing gas in space. It caused electromagnetic pulses in Hawaii and knocked out streetlights and telephone switching equipment. It destroyed the Navy's first transit navigation satellite and destroyed Telstar, the first communications satellite, which wasn't what they were aiming at. So the main lesson of the nuclear programs, Mudflap and Project 437, was that it's very easy to destroy things you're not aiming at in space. And finally, in the 1980s, we did get launched the ASM-135 ASAT. That was my F-15 launched rocket. It was a kinetic killer, not nuclear. The pilot had to be in a very specific place, fly a very specific flight pan at a very carefully calibrated time. The missile used a very simple helium-cooled infrared seeker, and they did actually destroy one defunct spy satellite, and then a couple of times they deliberately fired at stars just to make sure the rocket would travel in a straight line and do what it was told. Rockets never cleaned their room. They would only do what you told them if you told them to go shoot at a star. Now, the Soviet Union, much less is known about their projects, but their one known operational ASAT weapon was CoOrbital. It wasn't based on ramming, it was based on launching. They would launch a satellite into an orbit that was very similar to their targets. It was about a 1,400 kilo satellite, and they would then get maneuvered very close to the target, and kaboom! The satellite would self-destruct and launch a whole bunch of shrapnel at the target. They conducted 7 tests, including 5 successful interceptions, and declared the system operational. So they used this for much, and eventually Russia replaced this system with a direct ascent system, the A-235 Noodle, which is meant to be very similar to one of the American systems where we use a kinetic kill vehicle. You ram it. Now, it's worth pointing out that none of these systems are subtle. If someone attacks your satellite and you wonder where that came from, well, it's all ballistics. What launched into a similar orbit yesterday? What launched into a similar orbit an hour ago? Or what were you passing directly over at the time of destruction if it was a kinetic killer? With an 8th grade education, a slide rule, and some math, you know who to blame for wrecking your satellite. So these are not really deniable, subtle, stealthy spy weapons. It's kind of a big, loud gesture at your enemy. Finally, I'll talk about China and India, the 2 most recent members to join this club. In 2007, China attacked a defunct polar orbit weather satellite. It was big and heavy, and it was in a very stable, high-up orbit, about 500 miles above the ground. Not a low Earth orbit like the ISS, but what's usually called a medium Earth orbit. Now, this is a problem because if the satellite is in a high, stable orbit, all of the debris from the collision will be in, you guessed it, a high, stable orbit. It will last for a long time. Tom has in the video feed a map showing the tracks of this debris as big red lines over the Earth, and everyone was pretty angry about this. NT5TM. This event was the largest recorded single creation of space debris in all of history, with more than 2,000 pieces of trackable debris. Now remember, even a paint chip can wreck your whole day. Every one of these 2,000 pieces was at least as big as a golf ball. From this experiment has passed as close as 6 kilometers to the International Space Station. So these tests are kind of showy, but they're also pretty annoying, and they can have unintended special expensive side effects like with Telstar. Everyone gets a little mad at people when they do this, us, the Russians, the Chinese, and now everyone's a little mad at India. They launched with their Shakti mission a really impressive kinetic kill vehicle sponsored by the Indian Space Research Organization and the Defense R&D Organization. They did try to target a low-orbiting satellite that was already in the process of decay, so they're hoping the debris will decay quickly, hoping. thing is it's kind of like a food fight in a cafeteria. A lot of people who don't want to get hit by mashed potatoes get hit by the flying mashed potatoes. So my last part of this presentation is, well, why do this? I guess the main part is just to say you can. Nations like to boast. So do people, but nations spend more money. As I mentioned, a key criticism of this kind of technology is that it's an obvious prelude to war, and it's always obvious who did it. You can't hide ballistics. Math always works. You know who launched the weapon. And if the U.S. or USSR had, back in 1985, suddenly lost half of its, or all of its launch surveillance satellites, what would they have done? Immediately launch all their missiles at the other side, because it was an obvious precursor to war. To avoid massive and catastrophic retaliation, the use of an ASAT weapon would have to be very carefully tailored to a very special target in a very special geopolitical situation. I am not an expert diplomat. I don't know when that situation is going to happen, but I haven't seen one yet. Satellites are confidence builders. They're good for science, they're good for making money, and they're good for keeping us safe, whether it's from enemy weapons or severe storms. You know, as long as your satellites are up there, you can see your enemy and control your own forces. But if you lose them, you lose confidence, and a loss of confidence in the real world is all too often a prelude to violence. This is NT5TM. Right, well, that's a short history of anti-satellite weapons and why they annoy everybody. Do we have anyone else who'd like to join us? Anyone who'd like to check in? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
Number 5 Alpha Bravo Alpha, Andre in Dallas.
And 5 ABA. Andre, thank you very much for checking in. Next up is Chaz with What's Up? KF5JHA, please go ahead.
This is KF5JHA Chaz. My degree is in astrophysics, and I work for Brookhaven Community College. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up? Now, for the last several weeks, I've been looking over the asteroids that are monitored with orbits close to the Earth. This could have a devastating effect on satellites, too, just like what Tony was talking about. We did have, on March 31st, asteroid 2019 SV1 get as close as 346,000 kilometers to us. It had a speed of 18.3 kilometers a second and a size of about 6 meters. And it's about the size of the astrophysics lab at Brookhaven College. Tomorrow, on April the 7th, we have an asteroid 2019 GS getting almost as close to us as the moon at around 422,000 kilometers with a speed of 12.7 kilometers a second and a size of about 17 meters. That's a little bit bigger than the last one a week ago. We don't have any other predicted close encounters of asteroids over the next couple of weeks, but the one that happened on March 31st wasn't predicted in advance. Remember, the place that I go to get this information and much more is spaceweather.com. You are welcome to go visit there. They have some interesting information about northern lights and some things that happened to make them modified. Did you see it? Early in the morning on April the 2nd, it was clear in the Metroplex and I saw it. What was it? The thin crescent, waning crescent moon below Venus and above the planet Mercury. It was great. I'm sorry I didn't get a picture of it. Mercury will be at its greatest western elongation on April the 11th. So on April 11th, Mercury will be as high as it can get in the southeastern early morning sky before dawn. Over the last few weeks, I've been watching Venus sink lower and lower in the western not western, the eastern horizon, the early morning pre-dawn skies. In a couple of months, Venus will be so close to the sun in the sky that we'll no longer be able to observe Venus from here on the Earth. Actually, Venus is going to be on the other side of the sun from the Earth, so it's kind of far away from us. Then to the far right of Venus that morning, I found the much fainter planet Saturn. Then further to the upper right, I saw the planet Jupiter. And to the right of Jupiter, I saw the bright star Antares. The moon was new yesterday. So it is a waxing crescent tonight. Did anyone see it? It actually cleared off enough. I actually was able to see it through some clouds this evening. It was beautiful. I did take a picture of it, but it didn't get uploaded to Tom in time to show for tonight. The moon will be in conjunction with the planet Mars and the star Aldebaran on April the 9th and 8th and the 9th. On April the 16th, the moon will be at perigee with a distance of 364,209 kilometers. Perigee is when an object is closest to the Earth in its orbit. The moon and Regulus, the bright star in Leo, will be in conjunction on April 15th, Tax Day. And the moon will be full on April the 19th. And so we will see the moon in the evening sky over the next couple weeks if it ever clears off. Continuing on in the evening sky, you'll find Mars about halfway up in the western sky just after it gets dark. It will be the pale orange object in the constellation of Taurus, and again, close to the star Aldebaran. That's the brightest star in Taurus, the bull. Orion can be found by looking high in the southwest for the three stars all in a straight line, which make up his belt. Two stars above the belt represent his shoulders. Betelgeuse is on the left, Bellatrix is on the right. Two stars below his belt represent his knees. The one on the left is Sciath, the one on the right is Rigel. Yeah, we'll get to these things in just a few minutes. Since we've already passed the first day of spring, I want to point out the lunar circle just one last time this season. The winter evening sky is dominated by the most bright stars than any other time of the year. In fact, there is a winter circle of bright stars beginning with a bright star which is high in the western sky, Capella, in the constellation of Orion. Then going clockwise, you'll find Aldebaran, just talked about that. That's the bright red bullseye of Taurus the bull. Remember, Mars is close to Aldebaran. Continuing in the circle, we arrive at the bright star on a knee of Orion. That's Rigel. Rigel is mentioned in Star Trek a lot, so you've probably heard that before. Keeping on going in a clockwise direction is Sirius, the next star in the circle, and it's the brightest star in the entire nighttime sky. This is the star Procyon and Canis Minor. Canis Minor is the little dog. Now, we keep on going in the circle, and the two stars representing the heads of the Gemini Twins, Pollux and Castor. And finally, back to the star Capella. At the center of the circle is the super giant star Betelgeuse, or Betelgeuse. And thinking of Gemini the Twins, did you hear about the drummer that had two twin daughters? He named them Anna 1 and a 2. Okay, I thought that was a good joke. This is KF5JHA. On the night of April the 22nd and 23rd, we have the Lyrid meteor shower. Meteor showers are named after the constellation for which they seem to originate. On a clear, moonless night, this meteor shower produces about 20 meteors per hour in the morning sky. Unfortunately, this year, there's a waning gibbous moon in the sky during the peak, so maybe only a few meteors will be able to be seen. Okay, now, you have a chance to ask your questions. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have questions or need a fill on any of you? Maybe a question on just general astronomy. I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now if you have a question.
G5P.
Uh-oh. If Mike is looking at the PowerPoint I put together, he's reading some of my questions that I have on the PowerPoint slide. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yes, Chaz. Could you survive a zombie apocalypse?
Obviously not, because that's why I'm talking here on Skynet. So when was the zombie apocalypse? I missed it. I'm sorry I missed it. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so one more joke for the road. What's a twin's favorite fruit? Do you give up? You know, we're talking about Gemini the Twins. A twin's favorite fruit are pears. Get it? Pears. Oh, okay. Then this is KF5JHA Chaz, and that's all for this week's What's Up. Tony, can you help me out? Back to net control.
Of course. This is NT5TM for the Saturday Night Skynet. Does anyone else want to check in? Anyone who'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, phonetically, name, and location. I heard Alpha Golf 5 Papa Charlie, and your audio is very low. Is that your correct call? And if you could tell me your name and location, I might have heard Royce City. I'm not really sure.
You got the call correct, and the handle is Al, and I have no traffic.
Well, welcome to Skynet, and thank you for checking in with us tonight. Carolyn, KC5OZT, you're up with the constellation of the evening, Ursa Major.
Well, tonight we're going to have probably one of the most favorite in the sky, Ursa Major, the Great Bear. It's one of the best-known constellations, the third largest in the sky. And it's known for its asterism called the Big Dipper, one of the most recognizable shapes in the sky. It's got some mythology to it. One of the oldest constellations. It's referenced in Homer, in the Bible, and a great number of tales and legends across the globe that associate this with a bear. Although it has many different forms in the sky and different cultures, from a camel to a shark to a skunk to a sickle to a canoe. In some Native American tales, the bowl of the Big Dipper represents the bear, and the stars that mark the handle are the warriors chasing it. And since it's pretty low in the sky in autumn, it says it's the blood of the wounded bear that causes the leaves to turn red. And then during the Civil War, the Big Dipper played a role in the Underground Railroad, where the slaves were escaping. Its position in the sky helped the slaves find their way north. And there were numerous songs that spread around that said to follow the drinking gourd to get a better life. Okay, and as I said, we have the asterism, the Big Dipper, one of the most recognizable ones. And it's very useful as it points away to Polaris, the North Star. You follow the line from Merak to Dubhe, and continue the arc, you reach North Star. And an imaginary line stretches along the handle of the Dipper, leads to the bright star Arcturus and Boötes. And if you follow it farther, you find Spica and Virgo. So the Big Dipper is very useful. And one thing, there is the major moving group. That's a group of stars that includes most of the brightest stars in Ursa Major and are believed to have a common origin. It was discovered in 1869 by a English astronomer who realized all the stars of the Big Dipper, with the exception of Alcade and Dubhe, have proper motions heading toward a common point. And some of the other stars in the Dipper is Alcade, or Eta, the easternmost star. It's a young star. It's the third brightest star in the constellation, and one of the hottest that can be seen without binoculars. And then we have one called Mizar, M-I-Z-A-R. Now this is two binary stars in the Big Dipper's handle, the second star from the end. Mizar was the first double star ever to be photographed using the 15-inch refractor at Harvard. And its visual companion is Alcor. And these two stars are sometimes known as the Horse and Rider. Moving on to some deep sky objects now. First one we'll look at is M81, Bode's Galaxy. This spiral galaxy is tilted at an oblique angle to our line of sight, giving a bird's eye view of its structure. The galaxy is similar to our Milky Way. Because of its brightness at magnitude 6.94, it's a popular target for beginners and professional astronomers, and is the largest of 34 galaxies in what's called the M81 group, a group of galaxies located in this Ursa Major. Interacts with the nearby galaxies M82, NGC 3077, and as a result, the gas has been stripped away from all three. And M82 is the Cigar Galaxy. Let me remarkable for its bright blue disk, webs of shredded clouds and fiery-looking plumes of hydrogen blasting out of the central region. Through its center, young stars are being born 10 times faster than they are inside our entire Milky Way. And this is resulting huge concentration of young stars carved into the gas and dust at the galaxy's center. And the severe superwind generated from these compresses enough gas to make millions of more stars. 197 massive star clusters were discovered by Hubble in 2005. And now, instead of a galaxy, number 4, we find M97, called the Owl Nebula. Planetary nebula, magnitude 9.9. It got its name, of course, because of its appearance of owl-like eyes when observed through a large telescope. Next object is M101, the Pinwheel Galaxy. It is a grand design spiral galaxy seen face on. It's worth watching. It's a type 1A supernova was observed in August 2011. It contains a lot of bright H2 regions, bright, hot, uniform stars, and it has 5 notable companion galaxies. And they think the pattern is expected to be a result of the interaction of all these galaxies and companions. We have M108, a large spiral galaxy, magnitude 10.7. And you see it nearly edge on. It's an isolated member of the Ursa major cluster. And a type 2 supernova was observed in it in 1969. Then we have M109, that's number 7. That's another large spiral galaxy. And it had a type of 1A supernova. It was seen in 1956. So far, it has been the only supernova observed in this galaxy. So, it doesn't hurt to watch for them. And our final object is a dwarf galaxy in GC 5474. It's magnitude 11.3, and it's located near the Pinwheel Galaxy, and it interacts with it. And it's classified as a dwarf spiral galaxy because it shows signs of a spiral structure. So this Ursa Major is full of some nice deep sky objects and some fascinating stars. So take a look through it and you'll enjoy it. KH50ZT.
Well, thank you very much. This is NT5TM. I'll pause now in case anyone needs to check in or if anyone needs to recheck with a question. Either way, come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
K5LGX, Clark and Denton.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Delta Echo Bravo, Jason, Plano.
I heard Kilo 5, Lima Golf X-Ray, Clark and Denton, and Kilo Foxtrot 5, Delta Echo Bravo. Let's see, this week in recent astronomical discoveries, Brenda, WB50ZL, go ahead.
Thank you, Tony. This is WB50ZL. The first article is entitled, Dark Matter is Not Made Up of Tiny Black Holes. An international team of researchers has put a theory speculated by the late Stephen Hawking to its most rigorous test to date, and the results have ruled out the possibility that primordial black holes smaller than a tenth of a millimeter make up most of the dark matter. Details of their study have been published in this week's Nature Astronomy. Scientists know that 85% of the matter in the universe is made up of dark matter. Its gravitational force prevents stars in our Milky Way from flying apart. However, attempts to detect such dark matter particles using underground experiments or accelerator experiments, including the world's largest accelerator, the Large Hadron Collider, have failed so far. This has led scientists to consider Hawking's 1974 theory of the existence of primordial black holes born shortly after the Big Bang, and his speculation that they could make up a large fraction of the elusive dark matter scientists are trying to discover today. An international team of researchers led by Kavli Institute for Physics and Mathematics and the Universe Principal Investigator Masahiro Takada, PhD candidate student Hiroko Nakura, Professor Naoki Yasuda, and including researchers from Japan, India, and the U.S., have used the gravitational lensing effect to look for primordial black holes between Earth and the Andromeda Galaxy. Gravitational lensing, an effect first suggested by Albert Einstein, manifests itself as the bending of light rays coming from a distant object such as a star due to the gravitational effect of an intervening massive object such as a primordial black hole. In extreme cases, such light bending causes the background star to appear much brighter than it originally is. However, gravitational lensing effects are very rare events because it requires a star in the Andromeda Galaxy, a primordial black hole, acting as a gravitational lens, and an observer on Earth to be exactly in line with one another. So to maximize the chances of capturing an event, the researchers used the Hyper Suprime Cam digital camera on the Subaru telescope in Hawaii, which can capture the whole image of the Andromeda Galaxy in one shot. Taking into account how fast primordial black holes are expected to move in interstellar space, the team took multiple images to be able to catch the flicker of a star as it brightens for a period of a few minutes to hours due to gravitational lensing. From 190 consecutive images of the Andromeda Galaxy taken over 7 hours during one clear night, the team scoured the data for potential gravitational lensing events. If dark matter consists of primordial black holes of a given mass, in this case, mass is lighter than the moon, the researchers expected to find about 1,000 events. But after careful analyses, they could only identify one case. The team's results showed primordial black holes can contribute no more than 0.1% of all dark matter mass. Therefore, it's unlikely the theory is true. The researchers are now planning to further develop their analysis of the Andromeda Galaxy. One new theory they will investigate is to find whether both binary black holes discovered by gravitational wave detector LIGO are in fact primordial black holes. Okay, next article. Calculating temperature inside the moon to help reveal its inner structure. Little is known about the inner structure of the moon, but a major step forward was made by the University of Rhode Island scientists who conducted experiments that enabled her to determine the temperature at the boundary of the moon's core and mantle. She found the temperature to be between 1,300 and 1,470 degrees Celsius, which is at the high end of an 800-degree range that previous scientists had determined. In order to understand the interior structure of the moon today, we needed to nail down the thermal state better, said Ananya Malik, a URI Assistant Professor of Geosciences who joined the university faculty in December of 2018. Now we have two anchor points, the core mantle boundary and the surface temperature measured by Apollo, and that will help us create a temperature profile through the moon. We need that temperature profile to determine the internal state, structure, and composition of the moon. The surface temperature of the moon is approximately minus 20 centigrade. According to Malik, the moon has an iron core like that of Earth, and previous research using seismic data have found that between 5 and 30% of the material at the boundary of the core and mantle was in a liquid or molten state. The big question is, why would we have some melt present in the moon at that depth? Malik said. To begin to answer this question, Malik conducted a series of experiments in 2016 at the Bavarian Research Institute of Experimental Geochemistry and Geophysics in Germany, using a multi-anvil device that can detect the high pressures found deep inside the moon. She measured a tiny sample of material similar to that found on the moon, squeezed it in the device at 45,000 times the Earth's atmospheric pressure, which is the pressure believed to exist at the moon's core mantle boundary, and used a graphite heater to raise the temperature of the sample until it partially melted. The goal was to determine what temperature range would produce a 5 to 30% melt, which would tell us the temperature range of the core mantle boundary, she said. Now that the temperature range of the boundary has been narrowed, scientists can begin to develop a more precise temperature profile of the moon and proceed to determine the profile of the minerals that make up the mantle from its crust to its core. It's important that we know the composition of the moon to better understand why it has evolved as it has, Malik said. The histories of the Earth and Moon have been intertwined since the beginning. In fact, both are the product of a great collision between proto-Earth and an approximately Mars-sized body that occurred over 4.5 billion years ago. So to understand our Earth better, we have to know our nearest neighbor because we all had a common start. Earth is complicated, she continued. Any similarity in the composition between Earth and the Moon can give us insight into how these two planetary bodies were formed, what were the energetics of the collision, and how elements were partitioned between them. The URI geoscientists noted that Earth has evolved through the process of plate tectonics, which is responsible for the distribution of the continents, the topography of Earth's surface, and the regulation of long-term climate, perhaps even the origin of life. But there is no evidence of plate tectonics on the Moon. Everything on Earth happens because of plate tectonics, she said. What does this tell us about our own planet when the Moon doesn't experience this process? It's the same argument for why we study Mars and Venus. They are our next closest neighbors, and we all had a common start. But why are they so different from our planet? The next steps in Malik's research will involve experimentally determining the density of the molten material at the core mantle boundary, which will further refine the temperature range. In collaboration with Heidi Fuqua-Haviland at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center and Paul Bremner at the University of Florida, she will then combine these results with computational methods to derive the temperature profile and composition of the interior of the Moon. Okay, back to Nat. This is WB5OZL.
Very much for those recent astronomical discoveries. The one about tiny black holes and primordial black holes was especially exciting because they were able to devise a really fast experiment that would provide them really good data. It didn't take 20 years. It took one night of observing time. So it's pretty neat that they were that devoted to their goal, or at least that good at reaching their goal. Okay, this is NT5TM, and I'm going to go quickly through a number of items from space history and space exploration. The most interesting space exploration news this week was that Bereshit has entered lunar orbit. This is the privately funded Israeli space probe. It had been slowly climbing up from geosynchronous orbit, and with a final engine burn, it pushed itself over the lip of the hill, as it were, and it is now under the influence of the moon's gravity. They're hoping to make a final descent to the lunar surface on April 11th. I won't read all of these names here. You can look up more using the links at W5FC, but NASA has recently recognized some winners in its Recycling in Space Challenge. They're trying to find ways to compact trash in space with a minimum of fuss. You'll note that in Star Wars, a garbage compactor contains such a thing as a giant tentacled monster. NASA is not interested in recruiting monsters for the International Space Station. They want to find efficient and safe solutions that will help astronauts keep trash under control. Have one important space-related birthday this week. Gus Grissom was born on April 3rd, 1926. He was one of the 7 original NASA Mercury astronauts. He was the first of the Mercury 7 to die. He was also a Project Gemini and Apollo program astronaut, the second American to fly into space twice, and the first NASA astronaut to fly into space twice. What? I think they're counting X-15 pilots there. They're counting X-15 pilots. So he was the second American, but the first official NASA astronaut. He was a World War II and Korean War veteran, a test pilot, and an excellent mechanical engineer. He won the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Air Medal, and the NASA Distinguished Service Medal twice. He also received the Congressional Space Medal of Honor. Grissom, along with fellow AS-204, that's Apollo 1 astronauts Ed White and Roger Chaffee, died on January 27, 1967, during a pre-launch test of the Apollo 1 mission at Cape Kennedy in Florida. Other space history this week, on March 31st, 1966, Luna 10 was launched. This was the first artificial satellite of the moon. It was a lunar orbiter. It carried a gamma-ray spectrometer and other instruments for carrying out research in lunar orbit, most importantly to measure the moon's magnetic field, if it had one, and its radiation belts, if there were any, and to conduct some spectroscopy observations of lunar rocks, which were found to be very similar to earthly basalt. Important finding of Luna 10 is one that still bedevils astronauts and space probes. Mascons. What's a mascon? Is it a kind of pastry? It's a mass concentration. The moon is lumpy. It's hard to make a stable orbit around the moon because these mascons keep tugging you off, of course. On April 1st, 1960, TIROS-1 was launched, and this was no April fooling. It was the first successful low Earth orbit weather satellite. It was really just there to prove that space weather forecasting would be useful, and it was. It improved earthbound decision-making and helped warn of approaching hurricanes. It provided the first accurate long-range weather forecasts of offshore storms. April 4th, 1966, Astronaut Group 5 was announced. This had a bunch of astronauts from the Apollo and space programs, everyone from Al Worden and Fred Hayes to Stu Rusa and Vance Brand, Ken Mattingly, Ken Luzma. Lots of folks who flew on Skylab, and one unique astronaut, Joe Engel, who had previously been an astronaut in the X-15 program from the Air Force, excuse me. They provided astronauts to the Apollo Applications Program, better known as Skylab, Apollo, and the Space Shuttle. Apollo 6, an uncrewed mission, carried none of these astronauts. It was launched on Apollo 4th, 1968, and it was primarily to test that the Saturn V booster could put an Apollo spacecraft on a translunar injection trajectory. They were also hoping to test the Apollo heat shield on a simulated lunar reentry. It didn't quite work as expected. They had a horrible problem with pogo. That's where a spacecraft shakes backwards and forwards along its trajectory. This ruptured internal fuel lines caused several engines to fail and reduced both their trajectory height and reentry speed. April 5th, 1975, Soyuz 18 did not launch. Well, why is that exciting? It was one of the very early history of aborted space missions. It consisted of Vasily Lazarev, Oleg Makarov, and that was just it, a commander, Vasily Lazarev, and a flight engineer, Oleg Makarov. The mission did pass over 100 kilometers up and was technically a space flight, but the crew was rather shocked to discover that they were not going to space today. The problem, the second and third stages failed to separate, and so the third stage engine ignited while the second stage was still attached. The third stage did break 3 of the locks, but began to strain and tumble off its planned trajectory. The astronauts called for an abort, the ground controllers agreed, and the emergency separation system was activated. The astronauts took 20 Gs on their reentry and nearly died soon after. After landing in the mountains, they were dragged towards a cliff by their parachute and were only snagged by some bushes just short of a cliff. Finally, Pioneer 11 was launched on April 6, 1973. This was the second mission to investigate Jupiter and the first to explore Saturn and its rings. Pioneer 11 used Jupiter's gravity field to slingshot itself over to Saturn and then was ejected from the solar system at a very high speed. It passed as little as 21,000 kilometers from Saturn's cloud tops, but continued to provide science observations regularly until September 30th, 1995. Pioneer spacecraft were also the subject of the Pioneer anomaly, where they seem to be slowing down under the influence of the sun's gravity faster than they should have been. Scientists wondered if there were an undiscovered law of physics, but instead they found that one side of each spacecraft was getting a tiny bit warmer than expected. The infrared radiation from this heat actually produced a minuscule amount of thrust, around the order of 10 to the minus 10th meters per second, that slowed the spacecraft down by a tiny, tiny amount. And that's the space history for this week. This is NT 5 p.m. Tom, do you want to sneak in a few visible satellite passes?
Yeah, I think I can do that. Let's see here. This is KE5ICX. Let's see. Let me go ahead and give you the Hubble Space Telescope. Yeah, you can see that thing up in space. We have, this comes from heavens-above.com. You can go there, put in your longitude and latitude, and you can put this information in. There are 4 passes that are very good. April 10th is 1, is 3.5 magnitude. Let me go ahead and put the chart up here. 3.5 magnitude at 5:28 a.m. out of the south. It reaches the highest point. Whoops! 0.7 magnitude. There's a second pass on April 10th. That's the better one at 19:01. That's in the evening, 7:01 local Dallas time. Out of the northwest, it reaches its highest point at 19:05 at 76 degrees out of the north-northeast. And it falls at 19:07 at 32 degrees out of the east-southeast. The following evening, we have, again, 2 passes, one at 5:28 a.m., which isn't bad, but only 11 degrees, but at April 10th in the evening at 19:01 at 0.7 magnitude out of the northwest, reaches its highest point at 19:05 at 76 degrees, almost overhead, not quite, of course, 990 at 9 north-northeast. I know you were thinking about, never mind. 19:07, it falls at 32 degrees out of the southeast. And then finally, April 12th, April 11th, there's a 0.8 magnitude at 18:51 local time out of the west-northwest. It reaches its highest point at 18:55 at 75 degrees out of the south-southwest, and it falls at 18:57 at 20 degrees to the southeast. This is the Hubble Space Telescope we're talking about here. And finally, the AntiSat, which is a polar satellite doing environmental reconnaissance over the globe. We have 3 passes. One's on April 9th at 2.9 magnitude at 18:59 local time. Reached its highest point at 19:04, 85 degrees east-northeast, and falls at 19:09. April 12th, same sort of thing, 1848, 3.0 magnitude at 1848. This stuff is very consistent, folks, so it's easy to do, and you can go out practically every night and get the same information. 1853 is its highest, at its highest point at 62 degrees at east-northeast, falls at 1848. And finally, I'll put you out of all our miseries. April 14th, 3.4 magnitude at 1903, surprise, out of the south, 1918, reaches its highest point at 63 degrees west-southwest, and then falls at 1923. So if you like to get all this information, you can go to heavens-above.com. That's a hyphen in between heavens and above.com. Not only does it include visible satellite passes, it includes amateur satellite information. So if you're looking for that without needing an application or something that you have to download and run on your computer or your phone, you can go ahead and get this off the website. Just put in your longitude and latitude, and you'll be able to pick up this information. It will remember it through the cookies. So that's it from me. This is KE5ICX, back to net control.
And this is NT5TM. And NVSat is especially interesting, going back to our discussion of anti-satellite weapons and space debris. NVSat is a big worry to people who watch space debris because it is derelict. It's very, very big and heavy. It's very high, but its communication system ceased operating before the European Space Agency could deorbit it. So if something hits it, it could produce an enormous amount of debris. Well, as we wrap up the net, it's time to take a final round of check-ins. This is the last call, final call. Everyone who'd like to check in and who hasn't, please come now with your call sign, phonetically, name, and location. Right, nothing heard, so now I'll put a second final call out, and this is the final call for comments and questions, our 73 round. If you thought of a quick announcement that you forgot to share, if you thought of a question you'd like to ask any of our presenters tonight, this is the final call for comments and questions. If you've got something you need to ask, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
Completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Well, I don't know if you could say the same of us. We're all getting a little sleepy. Tonight we had 29 participating on the air by Echolink. Thank you, everybody who checked in. I hope that you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're also looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, you don't have to make a permanent commitment. You can just take a swing at it, give a presentation, take some check-ins. Just contact any of the net controls on the air or email nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net on Facebook, as well as our audio and video stream run each night during the net, and other useful resources by going to w5fc.org. Until next Saturday night, this is NT5TM Tony, closing the net at 22:29 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur radio use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. Hopefully our Afterglow net control will pop up here and let us know what time the Afterglow will start, if they're going to take 5 or not. NT5TM, have a great night.
net control. We'll be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We'll start at 10. I don't know, what is that? 34? No, 10:35 now. We'll be back. 5 minutes. KE5ICX. This is KE5ICX. Does anybody need to use the repeater before we begin? The Afterglow Movie Net. This is Kilo Echo 5 Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom. I'll be net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. What do we do? I don't know. Well, yeah, I do. We talk about a movie that we've agreed to watch or have been subjected to or otherwise have some sort of a peculiar interest in. In this case, bad and sometimes good motion pictures, usually with a science fiction bent, and have opinions about said movie, or in this case, TV series. We do TV series from time to time. In this case, that's what we're doing. Through a series of the F word, not that F word, the other F word, we ended up with an episode of, what is this thing called again? Let's see here. Oh, yeah, The Champions from 1968 to 69. You hadn't heard of it if you weren't born, and you hadn't heard of it after you were born because it was like an ABC channel, whatever it is here, replacement series in the summer of 1969. Oh, wait, it was NBC. I am sorry. That would be Channel 4 back in Detroit when I was growing up. Channel 5 here in Dallas. All right, so what the heck is this thing? All right, let me tell you. The Champions is and I get this from Wikipedia, they know everything. The Champions is a British espionage, science fiction, occult, detective fiction adventure. Put all those adjectives together. You've never heard of such a thing before. It was produced by Luke Ray's ITC Entertainment that brought us all sorts of other British stuff back then and some not-so-good stuff from Canada. Production company and consists of 30 episodes. How they did that, I have no idea. Broadcast on the UK network ITV during 1968 to 69. Series was broadcast in the US on NBC starting in the summer of 1968. I believe ending in the summer of 1968. So what was the series about? Agents Craig Sterling, Sharon McReady, and Richard Barrett work for a United Nations law enforcement organization called Nemesis, based in Geneva. Barrett is codebreaker, Sterling is a pilot. McReady, a recently widowed scientist and doctor. During their first mission as a team, their plane crashes in the Himalayas. That was the one I wanted us to see. They're rescued by an advanced civilization living secretly in the mountains of Tibet, who save their lives, granting them enhanced abilities, including extrasensory powers to communicate with one another over distances, telepathy, or as we know, cell phones, and to foresee events, precognition, that's called craziness, enhanced versions of the ordinary five senses, not the sixth sense, even though we've seen that too, and intellectual, physical abilities reaching the fullest extent of human capabilities. And this is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about, what are we talking about? I forget. The Champions, the Ghost Plane. I made a mistake. Not Ghost House, Ghost Plane. Many stories feature unusual villains such as fascist regimes from unspecified South American countries, Nazis, a common theme in the ITC's 1960s and 70s TV, in part owing to both the writers and the domestic audience having been of the war generation in 1969 or the Chinese. The villain schemes are often threaten world peace. Nemesis brief is international, so the agents deal with threats transcending national interests. The main main characters have learned to use their new powers that they go along, keeping what they discover secret from friend and foe alike. Each episode begins with a close-up shot showing the region of which the story is about to take place, followed by a teaser, sometimes prefaced by stock footage. This is a long sentence. This is followed by the title sequence. Immediately following that, is a post-title vignette in which one or more of the champions demonstrate exceptional mental or physical abilities, often astonishing or humiliating others. In one example, Sterling participates in a sharpshooting contest. In another, McReady's car is blocked in. Two laughing, passing drunks try to lift it out, but she goes around to the other side and pulls it out of a parking space one-handed. Paradoxically, the narration during these often public demonstrations usually mentions the need to keep the powers a secret. Yes, irony can be a pretty ironic thing. The only other series regular in the Champions is the Champions boss, Tremaine. Not Trelane, Tremaine. He does not know that his agents have special abilities. He's an idiot. Although he does ask innocent questions about just how on their missions they managed to carry out certain tasks about which their reports were vague. Nothing like an intelligence company with the guy at the top lacking intelligence. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins. I will ask for your call sign phonetically, your name, where you are transmitting from. That's QTH in a secret code. And did you see tonight's episode? Please come now.
This is November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. If I'm caught, the Secretary will disavow all knowledge of my existence. I did see the movie. However, the link you sent was the wrong link to a version with no audio. I eventually found the good version on YouTube in 5dB.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burrow in Dallas. I did see the movie. Tom, you gave a long explanation. I don't know what there's going to be left for us to discuss. KF5 TSK back to net.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville. I did see the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Mike and Richardson. Yeah, I saw the movie, but I didn't quite understand what they were talking about when they learned all these secret super $1 million man skills from this Tibetan deal. I had no idea what that was about, so thanks for the filling me in on that, KG5P.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, portable in Dallas. I did see it.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. Yes, I saw it.
Yeah, 5, JHA. Did not see it. I'm just lurking around listening.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November, James, I saw the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay near Weatherford. I may have doubled with James in Fort Worth, Papa Mike November. I watched the wrong episode of it. I watched the premiere episode, not this Ghost Plane episode. So I'm just going to be listening in.
get these check-ins and I'll take another round. I've got N5BB, Bill in Irving. Yes, he saw the ghost plane. K5TSK, Burrow in Dallas. Yep, he saw it. KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn in Louisville. Yep, she saw it. KG5P, Mike in Richardson. Yep, he saw it. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yep, he saw it. WB5OZL, Brenda in DeSoto. She saw it. K5JHA, Chaz is just listening. So I'm going to say he did not see it. You missed out on nothing. KG5PN, Papa Mike November, James. Yes, he's Jay, KG5BZW over in Weatherford. Jay, don't feel bad. I watched the same episode you did, and I was corrected by people online who were watching it with me. So you did the right thing, and I put the wrong post up, but you knew what to do. So you get kudos from me, whatever the hell that means. Okay, any additional check-ins? We were talking about the Champions television series out of Britain in 1968, and the episode was Ghost Plane. I thought it was Ghost House. That's how much this show impressed me. But in any case, it doesn't matter if you want to talk to us about television or movie series with telepathy, which is cell phones without the cell part. Please come now.
KE5AXY in North Dallas. I haven't seen the episode. Really don't know the series you're talking about.
Have to help me because I don't remember much of the plot on this thing, except for the first episode, which had airplanes. So we'll start at the top. N5BB. Bill, you saw this. Tell us about the plot. What did you think? What was important? What worked for you? And what didn't? N5BB from KE5ICX.
Well, this is N5BB. What did not work is the link in your email. No audio. But once I found the real ghost plane with audio, the plot, for you that people didn't see it, was that some U.S. pilots saw a plane, must have been somewhere near China, and the plane was a design which it was beyond any current capability. It was supposedly going Mach 5, appeared to be all stainless steel, and the guy that saw it barely made it back. He was injured, but he made it back to the ship. So, the British set up were the people that were doing this research. The group seemed to be like the Avengers, another British series, mixed with Mission Impossible. But I think Man from U.N.C.L.E. was really what they were targeting at, because Nemesis is like the U.N.C.L.E. organization. They're a kind of international good guys kind of thing. So Avengers mixed with Man from U.N.C.L.E., mixed with maybe a little bit of I Spy, all these things from the same time frame. Let's see. Then, as you mentioned, Tom, there were these three British agents that had these miraculous powers, but since I did not see the initial episode, I didn't realize how they got them, except by reading the IMDb or Wikipedia area. The plot was the guy that originally designed them was now a university professor, and he had sold the design after he couldn't sell it to NATO because the dumb NATO British guy didn't think it was very useful. He sold it to the Eastern Bloc, and they were exporting components through Albania that were going to be installed in the airplane in 10 days, which is unbelievable. And they were going to have these 250 airplanes or something in 10 days. Impossible, but they were going to do it. Anyway, the key thing was the refrigeration unit. So I've just about described the whole plot. It was typical for the plots back then, suitable for a 1-hour TV show. Like I say, sounded like Man from Uncle. In 5 BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Jeez, I didn't ask for additional check-ins over on Echolink, and I think they're reminding me now. All right, let me do this. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to go ahead and take additional check-ins over on Echolink. My apologies, you guys. Echolink only. Please check in now with your call sign name or where you're transmitting from.
Do you know if the APRS repeater on there is still running? Because I know they're going to be doing slow scan TV in soon, but I don't think that soon.
I got it. It was very over-modulated. KE0MFD with a link with Matt. And let's see, I got N5IMS, and that would be, JJ over in Carrollton. He didn't see it, or he's just listening. And let's see, I think that's it this evening. Okay, everybody else is checked in. Well, everybody, our man is there, KE5AXY. I'm not seeing any response from him. Go ahead and put it in the chat window if you want to be included. And I will go ahead and go down the list. I've got KF5TSK, Burl, over in Dallas. Burl, your thoughts about the plot. I know you took meticulous notes. Tell us everything you know from KE5ICX.
Thomas, I think you had another station from North Dallas that you doubled with, KG5P.
I think we're speaking the same language, but we're just saying different words.
The perfect double, and with a delay. Echolink, there was somebody on Echolink. I'm sorry, I doubled with you a second time, and I looked over, and it was already gone. So the Echolink station, try one more time.
KE5AXY, North Dallas.
Very good. I got KE5AXY in North Dallas. I've got that as listed as RW Man. I will come back to you in a little bit. The television show this evening we're talking about is Champions from 1968, and the Ghost Plane. This was all my fault, and it really turned out badly. But if you saw it, that's even better, and then you can tell me how bad my decision was. Let me go to KFI-TSK Burl in Dallas. Your thoughts about the plot on this fine film. Please go ahead.
This is KFI-TSK. Well, I thought everything about the film was technically incorrect. You know, you build a plane out of stainless steel and you can get it in the air. Must take a lot of thrust. You know, you're doing Mach 5 and you manage to shoot down 3 planes, and it's like, if you're moving that fast, how do you even know? Well, maybe you know they're there, but, you know, by the time you realize they're there, you've already passed them. One of the things about the plot, I think they should apologize to the U.S. Navy for showing their officers as, I don't know, you know, not really paying attention, not what's going on. They have a radio officer, and he doesn't know the speed of the aircraft. It's like, where did they come from? Overall, I thought the plot was, you know, entertaining, but technically incorrect in a lot of ways. You know, good refrigeration, but, you know, I think the thing would have been, you know, how do you get to Mach 5? And seemed like the planes were, what, 1960s. KF5-TSK, back to net.
Very good. Thank you, Burl. And I'll just interject only this because I talked to an SR-71 pilot who says their plane could only get up to about 2.8. After that, the logarithmic scale kicks in, and all of a sudden, for every major increase burst in power, speed, energy, and all that, you get a very small incremental increase. So Mach 5, unless it's coming from the moon, you're not going to get that far with it. Let's see. Next up, KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn in Louisville. You saw the Champions, the Ghost Plane. What'd you think?
Well, like a lot of y'all, it reminded me of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and those kind of shows. But it took a while to get into understanding just what was going on with refrigerating and all that. But I watched it all the way through, and at least it seemed to end okay. KC5OZT.
All right, thank you, Miss Carolyn. I agree with you on that one, but I will reserve comment. KG5P, Mike, you admit you saw it. What did you think about the plot?
All right, KG5P. Well, it started out with the $6 million man. I guess you could throw that into the Formula 2. He had all these superpowers that he got from these Tibetan monks or something. And he could chase down out-of-control ice cream trucks from creaming the kids that were playing in the street. I guess their mamas didn't tell them to don't play in the traffic. And then it does. Then the aircraft American aircraft that were flying around. Those things were F-100s. Air Force plane. I think the National Guard had some, but it was never a Navy aircraft, and then they had them landing on a carrier, which is kind of bizarre. The fact that it was stainless steel, or that the ghost plane was stainless steel, yeah, that's possible. There was a U.S. aircraft called the XB-70. It was like a supersonic bomber that never really got into production or anything. It was just experimental. It was stainless steel. So, you know, I mean, it had 6 engines on it or something like that, but it was a large aircraft, but it was stainless steel. Typically, they don't make aircraft out of stainless steel. The SR-71 was made out of titanium, of course, and most other aircraft are made out of aluminum, although I have no idea what they make the X-30 or the F-35 out of. One thing they kept saying was Mach instead of Mach. I always heard it Mach, but maybe the British call it Mach. I don't know. I mean, it was named after a German physicist whose name was Mach. But, you know, and then it got to the babe lady scientist with the big hair, and there was a chicken in their liquid nitrogen cooler and smashed it apart with a hammer. But it took her a while to cool down, and they never did really cool her off all the way. The cup of coffee warmed her right up, so I didn't quite understand what that was. Yeah, it was kind of disjointed. I know I missed something somewhere in part of the series, but that was okay. I probably won't watch the rest of it. Back to you, that's KG5P.
That will communicate in ASCOM. So I was kind of wondering if I could take like one of these arrow antennas and just balance it out right on an astronomy mount and tell it I want this satellite, and have it sleep until it breaks the horizon, and as soon as the mount starts moving, then I know when to start listening.
Equatorial on the frequency here.
Okay, I got Matt there. He's on his link, KE0MFD. Matt, I'll let you go ahead and make a comment. You were way over-modulated. Can you back it off just a little bit? And we'll go ahead and take your comment, and then we'll go ahead and move on.
BB. Tom, I don't think he's talking to us. Earlier he was talking about APRS, and now he's talking about antennas in 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. He's probably trying to respond to something elsewhere. All right, very good. He's over here, but he is on Echolink, and he's responding somehow. Okay, that's my guess. Okie dokie. Well, we'll see what we can do. Let's see. Next on the list, NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. You had a chance to see it, didn't you? Tell us more, plot-wise.
Thank you. Yes, I found it in general boring and hard to follow, and I think what set the whole tone for the show was, yes, in the opening credits sequence when one of them uses their superpowers to stop a plumber's van or something that's rolling down a suburban street because they forgot to set the brake. Yes, that's sure exciting and heroic and grand in scope and very interesting. I say with a great amount of sarcasm.
They're going to respond to it.
very heavy. The Soviets did build, I don't know if it was the MiG-29 or something else, they did build an interceptor that used a great deal of stainless steel, and it was very fast. That was the whole point, is that the skin could get very hot. But it was also very, very short-ranged and almost impossible to turn. So it's kind of a limited material for a jet fighter, especially a dogfighter swooping and shooting down all these other planes. So yeah, I was irritated by the technology. This isn't the jet age anymore. Jets don't seem impossible and new and incomprehensible. They seem ordinary. So I'm not easily impressed. Yeah, the Mach 5 wasn't believable. The plot seemed contorted and hard to follow, and they have too many people in it, and I had a very hard time keeping them all straight, in part because I was so bored. But yeah, I was totally not impressed. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony, and thanks to my mess up on this one. I found quite accidentally a very bad episode, and what I will do is somewhere on the next round or the round after that, we'll talk about telekinesis and telepathy and all that stuff and how that works in telling a story, because there's plenty of things that go right and wrong, well, mostly wrong. Okay, thanks. Next up, and by the way, this is KE5ICX. We're talking about the Champions, the Ghost Plane. I thought it was the Ghost House. Guess I was thinking of Night Gallery, but that's okay. This week has been totally off kilter for me, so I'm going to move on to WB5OZL. Miss Brenda DeSoto, your thoughts on the fine slot to this episode of the Champions?
This is WB5OZL. Well, after seeing it, I realize now why I never heard of this before. It didn't hold up, and nobody watched it much, and it did not become an enduring classic that we all love to watch over and over again, like Star Trek. This is so typical of 60s television, the action-adventure shows. They made so many of those in the 60s and 70s, and it's just formulaic. It's like the music is the same in all of them, and the plot is the same. I never understood exactly what the superpower was that somebody in Tibet taught them. I would think there'd be a whole lot more powers than what they had of just little telepathy. Oh well. That's all I have to say about it. It was, I would say, a mediocre plot. It's the best I could say. Back to that, WB5OZL.
Then, at nighttime, you pointed at a star in the east, a star in the west, a star in the south, and it does what function called plate solving, and it knows how much you had to adjust each of the, adjust on each of the stars to get them centered within the reticle and the eyepiece, and then it can figure out exactly where from that, given the time that you fed it, where it is on planet Earth, and what the sky looks like ahead of you or above you. From that point, you can, as long as the telescope mount doesn't move, it's pretty much good for as long as you're going to use it.
When they're not in the same room, that sort of thing. You got anything for us? Please tell me now. I figured he went to bed, and it's past his bedtime. Let's see, James, KT5PMN. I'm going to plug this thing back in now. your comments on the plot. On the plot about the champions. Go ahead.
This is KG5PMN. I thought the plot was kind of straightforward. I mean, it's just kind of a simple beginning and a simple ending. It kind of just apparently flowed through, and but like one station said, I kind of had a hard time following all the twists and turns at various locations everybody showed up at, and who was who on it. Thought that the aircraft looked like they were in the beginning out of the 50s, and the old Air Force planes of the 50s flying up there in formation. And I'll send that back to the net, KG5PMN.
Minnesota put up a giant balloon and did some sort of, I don't know, voodoo. I wasn't there, but apparently they were transmitting from a bunch of Yagis up to a balloon, then bouncing it off the balloon back to the University of Minnesota for the live feed, and it jacked everybody's telescopes. Everybody's imaging rigs, they were just fried out, and all of the people in Grandview, Nebraska, who went there to view or well, to image the solar eclipse were hyper mad about it. And it was all RF interference from those guys.
KG5BZWJ in Weatherford. Quick key and get in there. Your thoughts about the plot. Go ahead.
KG5BZW. Hopefully this is getting in. I am on Echolink, so I am subject to the other guy's link doing whatever the heck that is doing. Okay, so I didn't see this episode, and it looks like it got through. I'm sorry, and now I'm getting myself distracted because I'm watching this stream on TV. Okay, so I did not watch the episode. I did watch the initial one. I didn't think it was really telepathy. They were supposed to be like super hearing, super strength, super intelligence. I actually don't even recall anything of a, telepathic communication kind of thing. They use, distant communication, but, say, oh, she can hear. It was the whole initial show was just kind of silly to begin with. Didn't really explain why they were endowed with these gifts or anything. It's just, oh, you're the good guys. Here's some gifts for you. So I'm not really surprised that this episode down the line didn't quite make that much sense either. But anyway, that's all I've got to say right now. I can't think of anything else. KG5BGW, back to net.
Gets out there pretty frequently to talk to those guys. I wonder what frequency it's on. It'd be interesting to capture it and then see if you could decode it.
Net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We are talking about the producers. So we're talking about, what are we talking about again? The champions, the ghost plane. All right, here's the thing about this series I find interesting or not. I remember as a kid, I watched this thing on TV. It was summer replacement on apparently NBC. I thought it was ABC, but it was NBC. It was one of those things that came about after the Avengers, not the one you see in TV and movies and everything. This is the Avengers from the 1960s, which was a British series with a guy and a gal that would go and solve crimes for unknown English organization in a local English environment. Sort of like NCIS without the NC or the IS part. That's pretty cool. The series appeared as sort of a knockoff to The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and The Avengers and other series that were secret agent involved. This one follows that very closely, and the characters communicate with one another not by telephone, which was very popular in the Avengers and series, and if I've been watching that series. Don't want to digress, but I've been watching that series Monday through Friday, 2 episodes, very early morning when I get up, and realize that the only way you can communicate is by telephone. Everything is a meticulous dialing out to one place or another, and the actors have to be there to answer the phone. Well, I happen to be at my apartment. I have to be here. I have to be at headquarters. I've got to do these things to get the latest bit of information. This series actually said by telepathy you can talk to somebody instantaneously, and that person could be speaking to a suspect or a victim or someone else. And that would mean then that they had special powers and they could communicate instantaneously. Let's flash forward. The first series to realistically portray that would be the X-Files with cell phones. This was the first time they used cell phones to discuss things in real time and make them, and be able to allow characters remote from one another to cause an action and reaction in a series, in a particular scene. That was pretty cool. But it was done earlier with this Champion series. Now, what do you do with it? Well, apparently not much, because in the end, you cannot change the inertia that's going on. So I think in some ways, and this is sort of a digression of sorts, is that the characters can't really change a lot, although I probably need to see additional episodes. So my conclusion. Otherwise, these people were like, I don't know, 20 years ahead of everybody else. Let's see, 68, 78, 88, 98, 2008, 40 years ahead of their time regarding what cell phones could be. So, telepathy, it's great. I want a low rate on the telepathy part because my cell phone people are really killing me. Okay, this is KE5ICX. Those are my comments. We are talking about the series called The Champions, which was an ITC production back in 1968, I think it was, 68, 69. Any additional check-ins, I'll take you now. If you want to join us, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Don't necessarily have to have seen it. We do have this thing about telepathy going on and what the heck is it and what does it matter. You can check in on that too. So any additional check-ins, please come now.
KE0 MFD, what's going on? Standing outside, enjoying the amazing weather right now. I was kind of hoping I'd get lucky and all the weather prognosticators would be wrong, and I would be talking to you right now from my PC, running first light images on my new telescope, but that's not the case. But since it's still nice, I'm out here, and I'm going to be out here because it's beautiful.
Characterization, go ahead.
Well, this is N5BB. I don't know if we could really go through much on characterization, so I'm just going to give some other general points, Tom. Because I don't know if I want to stay in here another 40 minutes talking about this. But the characterization, I guess, you had these three people with some kind of superpowers, although I didn't understand exactly what they all were other than telepathy, and one of them could run fast. And I didn't understand what the other two people could do. Maybe the same thing. I don't know. We didn't learn a lot about their characters other than these three agents are kind of bold. But they're agents. They're doing everything the agents do. I mean, there's not a lot to say, I think, about the characterization. The British general or admiral, whoever he was, that originally did not buy the airplane was portrayed as a doofus. That's probably the best description of him. Just like the U.S. Navy commander, whoever, who ignored what the pilot said. So it's standard fare. All of the government or military management is stupid, at least initially, until they're convinced. And this is true on all these programs, movies, you name it. After World War II, in the Korean War, all the military people that are in management positions, you know, the first couple of levels of up the chain of command, are all treated as stupid in all these movies and TV shows. Anyway, what I wanted to say was the flavor of this was from the huge number of spy and semi-spy kind of shows in the U.S., but especially Great Britain in the 60s, mainly in the 60s. Some of these were marionettes and things like that. And I'm going to list a big list of TV shows. Every single one of these was related to the three people that created the Champions. Monty Berman, Dennis Spooner, and the writer Donald James. These people were involved with Fireball XL-5, Stingray, Thunderbirds, Joe 90. These are marionette kind of things. Then the Avengers, Mission Impossible, the Protectors, the Adventurer, the Secret Service, the Persuaders, Department S, the Saint, and the Man Who Never Was. All of those were kind of secret agent, spy kinds of things. So these things are all over the place, and some of them survived for one season. Some of them didn't even survive that long. Some of them survived several seasons. But they kept throwing different ideas out there, and they were all very slightly different from each other. They used sometimes the same actors, sometimes different actors. The Prisoner was another one of those series that came out of one of the other ones. Anyway, that's all I got for characterizations. Spy movie in the 60s, 2 or 3 main characters, like Mission Impossible, like Get Smart. What more can you say? Like the Avengers. N5BB.
Here to stay.
Information to me because I loved all those shows and it had that vibe to it. It didn't always have the soul to those shows, but that's okay. I really appreciate the connection because that is significant to me with all that stuff going on when I was growing up. KFITSK, Burl, your comments on characterization. Go ahead.
Oh, this is KFITSK. Well, I thought the representation of telepathy was, rather poor. That, if it was between two people, maybe I could understand, but this thing of party line telepathy, I think that's, that's a big stretch. Supposedly they want to swim on shore to this, warehouse, and, they had wetsuits, but no tanks, no means of propulsion, and you're going to swim out to a ship, and why put on a wetsuit if the, temperature is, I guess, normal or warm. I think all of the women had coats on, so didn't really get the impression that it was, really cold. And the thing I thought was so unusual was, the revolvers. They looked like they were from maybe World War I. That they just looked. They were different. KFI just came back to that.
Summer weather all the time. Like it's pretty much 77 every day in San Diego. But where would you go to have that upper 60s, lower 70s kind of weather all the time? And the only place that I could even think of would be Southern Ireland.
You're up next. Run back to the microphone. What'd you think about the characterization?
I think I'm going to check out here too, Tom. Not much. I don't really have anything to add that hasn't already been said, so I think I'm going to check out. Thanks a lot. We'll be looking for the movie for next week, KG5P.
I have a large, basically it's a raised garden, but for years I've only used it as a fire pit. And I'll throw like yard waste on it. But since we had really no fall last year, I've got 10 bundles of wood sitting here that have been out all winter, and this pile of yard waste that I'd love to burn on it, but it's soaking wet. But yeah, tonight would be a perfect night for a bonfire if it was a responsible thing to do, which it's not.
I get the feeling my choice wasn't all that good. I can't imagine why. It was the, what were they called again? Yeah, I understand. WB5OZL. Miss Brenda, your comments on the champions, I had to remember. Go ahead.
WB5OZL. I kind of like the costumes. It reminds me of my youth. And all those cold bare legs because you had to wear short skirts. I just, don't understand that. On this heavy cape. And your legs are bare. But that's what it was in the 60s. The characters, I thought were pretty bland. They were pretty people, but they just, it just wasn't very interesting. So obviously that's what they wanted to do, but the end result was I really didn't care about any of them, didn't empathize with any of them. So, okay, that's all I got about characters, WB5OZL.
And yeah, my wife and I we'd like to get one of those like ultralight couples campers, preferably a used one, because I kind of get the feeling that if I bought a brand new one, it's going to fall apart anyway. So I might as well buy a used one because I already know it's going to fall apart. And see how we like it together. You know what I'm saying? But then eventually get one of the ones that's kind of like fiberglass top and bottom put together, a much more sturdy type of thing. Because, a couple of years ago, went chasing the solar eclipse and ended up in Nebraska, way western Nebraska. And we hit all the, national parks and cool things that we could possibly hit on the way out and then on the way back, and had no plan whatsoever, just, like checking the app, seeing who's got stuff open, calling people while we're on our way to God knows where. And it all worked out, and it was amazing, and she kind of got over her need for planning that she kind of had, and she got a taste for it, and I love it anyway. I absolutely love it. I couldn't do it as a kid.
Thoughts about characterization? All right, James, I had to plug you back in. Try one more time. My fault. KE5ICX. James, try. James. J. KG5BZW. Try again.
Okay, this is KG5BZW. Characterization. Well, like I said, I only can talk about the first episode, not this episode. Well, I don't know what to say about it. I really don't. The characters that I saw were pretty flat. The Tibetan, the guy, the old Tibetan monk was oh man, I really can't think of anything character-wise they were just kind of flat characters. So I'm guessing in the episode that the prescribed episode, I just can't really say anything that you didn't see anything of any real import or anything to describe it. Anyway, I'll hand it over to the next guy, KG5BZW. KG5BZW.
Thanks, Jay. And, well, this was kind of a weak offering, but, that happens. Let's see. I'll take additional check-ins. We were talking about the 1968 series called Champions out of Britain, and has to do with three characters who have telepathic abilities. They talk to one another and they solve crimes out of Geneva, no less. But in any case, I'll take additional check-ins and then we'll go and we'll just open up conversation after that. Anybody like to check in? Please come now with your call sign and your name and where you're transmitting from. Oh, I was afraid of that. Okay, let's do this. I will open up the conversation. Anything you want to talk about this evening, which includes, because this was such a weak offering, any movies you would like to suggest for the future, TV series and all of that. Anything you would like to bring to the net this evening of any sort, any place, any time. Conspiracy theories are always welcome. If you've seen a flying saucer, that will work too. If you've not seen a flying saucer, we'll take your check-ins as well. Anything you want to talk about, anything at all. Is this mic on? Try now. Please come to your call sign.
EBB, late check-in.
Well, yeah, that's either light or really, really balanced. The four-banger S10 Blazer, just, I'm not looking for specific numbers, but that sounds like the type of vehicle that would pull about 3,500 pounds, so it had to be pretty light.
That guy's plugged once again. I'm not sure what's going on. He's got some sort of confused router and connecting over Echolink, but only communicating in one direction. Weird. Okay, W5EBB, David, any comments? Did you see tonight's movie TV series, The Champions, The Ghost Plane, and or any comments about telepathy? Go ahead, David.
I just watched George Carlin a few nights ago, and he did the thing about, not eating certain foods, and it's like, how do you know you don't like it if you haven't even tried it? And I guess this is in a telepathy sense. He said, it came to me in a dream. And I think that's where a lot of us get telepathic inputs, is from dreams. Certainly not from watching choice, it's 1968 pseudo sci-fi episodes like this. I did watch about the first 5 minutes, and then I switched over to watch the last bit of the NCAA semifinal. Texas Tech will be in the finals, the championship game, Monday night. That's the main thing I wanted to contribute to the net tonight. Otherwise, I just watched about, I flipped through, in 5-minute increments to see if there was anything substantial in what I would perhaps have seen, which I didn't. So I'm also eager to know what next week's selection is. W5EBB.
Okay, very good, David. And I was conflicted. I'm from Michigan, so MSU and the Spartans out of Lansing. I was keen, and Texas Tech, I was keen with them, but in the end, I kind of wanted MSU to win. That's my dad's alma mater, and he's very excited. He's still around and really interested in that sort of thing. So that was, I can't do the math. He's in his 80s, but in any case, yeah. All right, very interesting. We'll see how it all goes in the end, and I think that's why we got sort of a lesser than normal enthusiasm this evening. It couldn't be this fine film we watched, but who knows? Okay. Well, I got you checked in. Thank you, David, and I will give the information on the next film. I'll tell you what. Anybody have any additional comments before I tell you what we'll be watching for next week? Because it's a big surprise, or not. This is KE5ICX. Additional check-ins come now. Take additional comments. Any additional comments, please come now.
And trailers are actually not that expensive to rent. of this 10-day trip that my wife and I were kind of toying around with doing one time, and it was only going to be $75 a day or something to do one of those, lightweights. It's probably a 3,500, 4,000-pound trailer to pull around, which that was kind of nice. But yeah, but pop-ups ought to be cheaper. K0 MFD ID.
When you watch it. But I actually know the show. So next week will be Visit to a Small Planet. I have the links up somewhere where you can watch it. I think it's on YouTube for free. The CoOrbital's Visit to a Small Planet from, I think, in 1963, I think is when the movie came out. Okay, I'm going to close it out. It's a little early for us, but only by a few minutes. Any additional comments, check-ins, anything, please come now before I close it out. Okie dokie. We'll go ahead and close it out. I want to thank everybody who checked in, and my apologies to everyone. This was kind of a weird week for me, so I didn't get stuff out in the normal time frame that I do. So I will further commit tomorrow morning, actually, when it's time. Probably about, 9 o'clock or whatever, I'll send out all the information on this movie. I'll put it up on Facebook and all that good stuff. If you would like to be a part of the Afterglow Movie Net and you are not currently, you can get information on the next movie and the movies after that by simply joining the Facebook page called Afterglow Movie. Those two words, Afterglow and Movie. Sign up there. You can also join our email list by going to send an email to ke5icx@yahoo.com. That's Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray @yahoo.com. Say you'd like to join, and I will send out the same information that I do on Facebook, because some people don't like Facebook. A lot of people don't. So that's a way of doing it, and I'll put you on the list. This is KE5ICX. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Thank you all for what was kind of a bizarre evening anyway. And say 7-3. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear for tonight. Bye-bye. Bye, bonds.